In the heart of Europe, Hungary is making a bold move that's raising eyebrows in Brussels and Washington. While the West grows wary of China and Russia, Budapest is deepening ties with both, welcoming Chinese investment and cozying up to the BRICS bloc. This isn't a sudden shift, but the result of a decade-long strategy under Prime Minister Viktor Orbán. As the EU tries to reduce its reliance on China, Hungary signs massive deals for Chinese-funded infrastructure. While NATO allies sanction Russia, Hungary keeps its energy deals with Moscow. This divergence has turned Hungary into the EU's maverick, straining alliances that have long guaranteed its security and prosperity. The contradiction is stark. A nation benefiting from EU funds and NATO protection, yet aligning itself with Beijing and Moscow. Hungary's stance is now a stress test for European solidarity, offering China and others a strategic foothold inside the West. The choices made in Budapest in the coming months could reshape Europe's geopolitical landscape. Hungary's experiment in foreign policy autonomy is forcing the continent to confront tough questions about unity and its future in a changing world. To understand Hungary's pivot, we need to look back at its post-Soviet journey. After 1991, Hungary raced to join the West, embracing democracy, capitalism, and integration with NATO and the EU. NATO membership in 1999 was a historic break from Moscow's influence and a guarantee of sovereignty. EU accession in 2004 brought economic transformation, billions in investment, modernized infrastructure, and access to the single market. For over a decade, Hungary was a model of successful post-communist transition, closely aligned with Western partners. Its foreign policy matched the consensus in Brussels and Washington, participating in NATO missions and supporting EU positions. This deep integration created strong economic and institutional ties with the West. It's this very foundation that makes Hungary's current Eastern opening so jarring. The country's shift is not just a policy change, it's a challenge to the stability and unity of the Western alliance. Hungary's new direction is shaking the very pillars that once defined its place in Europe. The real shift began in 2010, when Viktor Orbán's Fidesz party returned to power and launched the Eastern Opening policy. Framed as economic pragmatism after the 2008 crisis, it aimed to diversify Hungary's partners beyond a stagnating Europe. But it was also ideological. Orbán openly challenged Western liberal democracy, citing China, Russia, and Turkey as models. Hungary began courting Chinese investment, echoing Beijing's rhetoric and avoiding criticism of its human rights record. At the same time, it deepened energy ties with Russia, signing long-term gas deals and expanding its nuclear plant with Russian help. This strategy let Orbán present himself as a defender of national sovereignty, standing up to Brussels while securing deals from the East. The Eastern Opening became central to both foreign and domestic policy, consolidating power at home and reorienting Hungary's global position. These moves set the stage for the controversial partnerships that define Hungary's foreign policy today. Hungary's pivot is as much about political identity as it is about economics. Hungary's relationship with China is now the centerpiece of its Eastern Opening. By 2024, China became Hungary's largest trading partner outside the EU, with trade surpassing $13 billion. Chinese investment in Hungary exceeds €10 billion, far outpacing neighboring countries. Major projects include CATL's massive battery factory and BYD's first European car plant, making Hungary a key EV hub, but also deepening dependency on Chinese technology. The Budapest-Belgrade Railway, funded by a Chinese loan, is a flagship Belt and Road project, despite EU concerns over transparency and strategic risk. Diplomatically, Hungary has blocked EU statements critical of China and was the first EU country to use China's Sinopharm vaccine. The Food and University campus in Budapest, financed by China, has sparked fears of growing Chinese influence within the EU. Hungary's alignment with Beijing goes far beyond trade. It's a strategic partnership that's raising alarms across Europe. These moves have made Hungary China's most reliable partner in the EU. The partnership is deep, controversial, and increasingly consequential for the entire region. Hungary's ambitions go beyond China. It's also courting the expanded BRICS bloc. Budapest sees BRICS as a powerful alternative to the Western-led order, openly engaging with the group despite its EU and NATO membership. Hungary's relationship with Russia is central here. It secured exemptions from EU sanctions and deepened energy ties, notably through the PAX-2 nuclear project. Beyond Russia, Hungary is building ties with India, Brazil, and the Gulf states, seeking investment and new markets. Officials frame this as pragmatic, pursuing national interests free from Western ideological constraints. For Orbán, BRICS outreach is both economic diversification and a political statement against Western dominance. By engaging with a bloc, challenging the US dollar and Western institutions, Hungary signals its dissatisfaction with the current global order. Critics argue this approach risks burning bridges with the West. Hungary is positioning itself as a bridge between East and West, but the gap is widening. Hungary's foreign policy now stands in stark contrast to most of its EU partners. While the EU moves to de-risk from China, Hungary welcomes Chinese tech giants like Huawei, integrating them into its critical infrastructure. This creates security concerns for both the EU and NATO, as sensitive data could flow through Chinese-built networks. Diplomatically, Hungary has repeatedly used its veto to block EU statements on China and Russia, forcing watered-down compromises. This obstructionism allows Hungary to extract concessions and undermines EU unity. Even within the Visegrad Group, Hungary is now an outlier. While Poland and Czechia grow closer to the US, Hungary doubles down on ties with Moscow and Beijing. The result? Hungary is increasingly isolated, transforming regional alliances into forums of diverging interests. Its stance is testing the limits of EU consensus and solidarity. The gap between Hungary and its neighbors is wider than ever. Hungary's pivot to China and BRICS is a direct challenge to EU cohesion and its ability to act as a unified global power. The EU's unanimity rule means Hungary can block decisions on sanctions and foreign policy, slowing action and exposing internal divisions. This gives external powers like Russia and China a proxy voice inside the EU. Preferential treatment for Chinese companies and disregard for EU procurement rules create security risks and unfair competition within the single market. Hungary's actions force the EU to confront a core dilemma. Can a union of sovereign states maintain unity when national interests diverge so sharply? The debate over abolishing unanimity in foreign policy is no longer theoretical. It's urgent. Hungary's behavior is pushing the EU to rethink its governance and the balance between values and sovereignty. The future of the Union's effectiveness is at stake. The Hungarian case is now central to the EU's identity crisis. The Orbán government claims it's skillfully balancing East and West, maximizing Hungary's advantage. Officially, Hungary isn't abandoning the West, but adding an Eastern dimension, becoming a bridge between powers. But as US and EU allies see China as a rival and Russia as a threat, Hungary's stance looks less like balance and more like subversion. This has led to growing distrust and isolation from traditional allies. Chinese investments bring jobs, but also debt and dependency. Hungary risks becoming a target if the EU imposes tariffs on Chinese goods. The benefits of today could become tomorrow's liabilities, especially if Hungary is caught in a trade war between its main partners. The government is betting that the EU and NATO won't push back too hard, but patience is running thin. Billions in EU funds are already frozen, and pressure from Washington is mounting. The tightrope is narrowing. Hungary may soon have to choose a side. The balancing act is becoming unsustainable in a world of intensifying great power competition. Hungary's tilt toward China and BRICS is a calculated break from its post-Cold War Western path. Driven by economic pragmatism and illiberal ideology, Orbán's government has deepened ties with Eastern powers, especially in strategic sectors. This has brought short-term gains, but also political isolation and long-term dependencies. By repeatedly blocking EU foreign policy and embracing rivals, Hungary has become an internal challenger, weakening the EU's global voice. The contrast with its neighbors is stark. While others pull closer to the West, Hungary doubles down on the East. The country is walking a geopolitical tightrope, and the balancing act is looking increasingly risky. As 2025 draws to a close, Hungary faces a critical choice. Can it keep a foot in both camps, or will the widening divide force it to pick a side? The answer will shape not just Hungary's future, but the next chapter of European history.